Ladies and gentlemen, we have an actual news on the next Mass Effect game via a tweet and a news article via VentureBeat. The link will be in the description if you guys want to read both. This article goes over the next Mass Effect game's development as well as Dragon Age Dreadwolf and the fact that they're being developed together. It goes over so many things. It goes over the potential release date and where both games are in terms of development. So let's get right into it.
Lockhart QT.
In the VentureBeat article we get updates for both the next Mass Effect game as well as the next Dragon Age game via Dragon Age Dreadwolf. The article goes on to say that the former BioWare executive producer Mark Darrah has returned to work on Dragon Age Dreadwolf. If you didn't know, he actually did work on the previous Dragon Age games, and he will be now working on Dragon Age Dreadwolf as a consultant in a consultant role. If you don't know what a consultant role is in terms of game development, it's essentially someone who may not be directly involved in terms of game development, but will essentially support from a sort of sideline aspect if the team need to come to them with any questions regarding gameplay, lore, systems. They'll be there to help in a consultant role. On top of that, EA said that the Mass Effect team will help with the production of Dragon Age Dreadwolf as the production and polishing tasks ratchet upward. This isn't really a surprise as we pretty much already had confirmation of this and expected this from BioWare and EA. This has always happened in terms of development. It happens for other studios as well, and it happens quite a lot in EA and companies like Activision, Ubisoft, etc. The most recent example was the links in development between Dragon Age Inquisition and Andromeda and Anthem. EA BioWare will often reuse team members, assets, systems, engines, character models. Once one project is essentially finished, so for example in this case it would be Inquisition, once Inquisition's finished, they'll essentially move all the developers over to Mass Effect Andromeda. That's essentially what happened, and then half of Andromeda's team got moved over to Anthem. That's a whole thing, that's why the games essentially got rushed out, but they'll move those team members over to their sister/brother projects. Next up, we also learn that the next Mass Effect team can also do this because the next Mass Effect title is still in the pre-production stage, with a small core team working on it. There's also a lot to unpack here, so let's get right into it. In terms of game development for the next Mass Effect game, the pre-production stage is essentially the planning phase of the project, where devs focus on concept development, initial ideas, mood boards, planning, and essentially writing up initial design documents for systems, the engine, gameplay, characters, the story, where they want to do it, and etc. Essentially, it's still early days in terms of development for the next Mass Effect game, which is kind of sad to hear because we obviously, as part of, are mainly a Mass Effect channel, and we do want the game to come out early, but personally, I'd rather they take their time on this one because we all saw what happened with Andromeda and Anthem, so I'd prefer this game to come out, if it needs to come out in 2026, great, and then it comes out and it's brilliant, but we're going to have to wait and see, aren't we? Next up, we have some statements via Gary McKay, who is actually the BioWare general manager, and he basically gave these statements in this article with VentureBeat, so let's go right into it. Our studio is focused on creating the best Dragon Age Dreadwolf, while the core Mass Effect team continues their pre-production work, basically going over what he said earlier. Gary then continues on to say, "We continue to reiterate and polish Dreadwolf, focusing on the things that matter most to our fans, as we further connect this new experience with the series' legacy. Mark Darrah will join the team as a consultant, bringing with him years of experience working on Dragon Age. We're proud to have this team, with strong leadership at the helm, working together to realise the vision we have for the game." Following on from this, EA said that Dragon Age Dreadwolf has been in post-production since September. We know this already, and since the recent gameplay leaks, we also know that the Dragon Age team has the ability to complete a full playthrough of the game. This has actually been confirmed by a few developers tweeting about it. I've hopefully got a tweet on screen if I found it, but I've actually seen this quite recently. I've seen a few other Mass Effect and Dragon Age YouTubers reacting to it, so it's really cool to know that they can play the game start to finish, at least in a sort of incomplete version of it, and at least. Hopefully though, this means that we'll get another Dragon Age Dreadwolf update or trailer soon. Hopefully we get it at the Summer Games Fest or E3 maybe. We're going to have to wait and see. As I said earlier, the gameplay has already been leaked. We also had that blog post from, I can't remember if it was a couple months ago or a month ago, but essentially Gary McKay previously said in that EA blog post that the Dreadwolf team hit alpha last year. As development continues, EA is optimizing the team and bolstering it, basically bringing in new people as well as old developers that act in a more consultant and background support roles to essentially make sure that the game lives up to the legacy. This is also going on with the Mass Effect team as well, as we've already had this confirmed by Mike Gamble and other developers working on the next Mass Effect game. Mark Dorrow was a former developer and executive producer on Dragon Age titles at BioWare. He left the studio along with Casey Hudson in December 2020. They both essentially had really big key roles in BioWare, so at the time this was a bit of a shock. Recently he approached BioWare about returning, and the team thought it was an opportunity to bring back a seasoned veteran who was integral to the last 3 Dragon Age games, being obviously Origins 2 and Inquisition. This personally makes sense, as since Anthem, BioWare has had a few misfires in terms of development and game releases, being the fact that Anthem failed as a live service, and obviously Mass Effect Andromeda was essentially just rushed out the door and needed essentially a year of updates to be polished, and it had DLC cancelled, updates cancelled, etc. So this basically means that they really need Dreadwolf and the next Mass Effect game to do really well. Bringing back old developers to help out both Dragon Age and Mass Effect will hopefully bring both series back up to par and back up to snuff in terms of the fans as well as game critics. The article goes on to say that Mark Dorrow's focus will centre on ensuring that the team is connected this new experience with the legacy of the Dragon Age franchise, respecting the Dragon Age legacy that came before, while sustaining the vision for this beloved franchise, which is apparently a top priority for their team. Now, hopefully they can do this, as we already know from the gameplay leaks that the next Dragon Age game will be trying a few new things to modernise the series, whilst including a few fan favourite features as well. If you want full details on the leaked gameplay, don't worry, I'm not going to spoil it. If you want to go in blind for the next Dragon Age, I'm not going to spoil it here. I've already done a video on it. I'll have an image on screen as well as a link in the description if you want to go watch that for sort of all the updates on the gameplay leaks that happened a couple months ago. So, just to recap the article. We now have confirmation from BioWare and EA that the next Mass Effect game is still in pre-production and is still in early development. Whilst Dreadwolf seems to be much further along in post-production, hopefully nearing beta, EA and BioWare are bringing back old developers to back in to work on support and consultant roles. Dreadwolf and the next Mass Effect games will hopefully be a great step forward for both franchises, because at the end of the day, if they can make really good games, that will obviously draw more attention and bring in new fans, which will bring in sales and money, and hopefully we can get a whole new Mass Effect trilogy, but we're going to have to wait and see. In terms of release dates, I think we'll get a bigger blowout for Dragon Age Dreadwolf this year, with potentially a 2024 release date or window. In terms of the next Mass Effect games, well, I'm hoping 2025 after hearing this, but to be honest, after hearing what the developers have said in this article and what VentureBeat have written, I think 2026 for the next Mass Effect game could still be in the cards. Personally though, pre-production usually takes about a year at max. It can basically take a few months to a year depending on the size of the game and the actual title that they're making. So hopefully if the game entered pre-production last year in terms of Mass Effect, the next game is looking like 2025. Hopefully we get another teaser or trailer this year. Personally, I'm really hoping that we get something at the Summer Games Fest, and then we get something potentially on N7 Day where we get a more concrete teaser trailer perhaps, but again we're going to have to wait and see. So, what do you all think about the next Dragon Age Dreadwolf and Mass Effect updates? And when do you all think we'll see the next games releasing? Personally, as I said, I think Dreadwolf will be sort of late this year, hopefully, or mid-2024, whilst I think Mass Effect will be either late 2025 or early 2026. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you so much for all the love on the Mass Effect videos. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited for the next Dragon Age and Mass Effect titles, so I can't wait for that. I've also got a couple of Zelda videos. I've got a Zelda video coming out today, and then I've got one coming out tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But I am still making Mass Effect content and news and updates, so don't think that I'm stopping here. But I am also working on videos for Zelda and the next Final Fantasy VII releases, so I'm very excited for that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.